Over the past 3 months, I've been busy collecting pens, and in front of me today are 11 gel pens and rollerball pens from some of the largest pen brands in the world. Today, I want to show you how these pens perform when writing some of your favorite Chinese characters. 我们开始吧! Let's go through the gel pens first. Our first contender is the Uniball Signal 207. This particular pen is a very nice pastel purple color, but of course, they are available in the standard blacks and blues. A distinct trait of this pen is that it has the least amount of ink bleed compared to any of the pens you will see today. This means that it's generally consistent and easier to use, but the writing might not have as much flair as the others. I've used the Pilot G2 for a long time, and it has always been easy to use. It bleeds a tiny bit more than the Uniball Signal, or should I say, it used to. What you're seeing now is the performance I expect from a G2 gel pen. However, I recently ran out of blacks, so I ordered some from Amazon. And this is how those pens turned out. I was a bit disappointed since the ink was definitely not flowing the way it should. So then I went to my local Walmart and bought some more. And this is how the Walmart pens looked. A little better, but still not what I expected. It was writing on par with my blue Pilot G2 that's 6 years old. I finally ended up borrowing a G2 from a friend, and that pen finally met my expectations. I tried to figure out what was different between these pens, and I think I may have found something. The Amazon and Walmart pens seem to have been made in the same batch. As you can see on the ink cartridge, they were both made in the US in March 2021. However, the pen I stole from work was made in Japan in March 2019. And my old blue pen was also made in Japan back in 2015. So I don't know if there's a difference in quality between the Japanese-made and American-made pens, or if the current stock is just a lemon. But because of that, I'm temporarily hesitant on recommending this pen. Okay, if you watched my last video, you've also seen the Sharpie SGel. This pen bleeds quite a bit more than both the previous pens, so it can write more dynamic strokes. However, it also writes a lot smoother than the other two, which means it can be more difficult to control. As a side note, all the gel pens moving forward are pretty comparable in terms of ink flow. If you haven't noticed yet, I'm presenting these pens in order of how much their ink spreads on paper. Next up is the Papermate InkJoy. I almost didn't buy this pen because I'm really not a fan of Papermate. But I'm glad I did because this pen writes surprisingly well, and it feels reasonably sturdy too. It's not quite as slippery as the SGel, and ink flow is about the same. It is kinda ugly though. The Pentel Energel is an amazing pen with a caveat. First of all, it is definitely the smoothest writing pen I've ever used, but as you know, that means it's slippery and difficult to control for Chinese characters. Pentel calls this a hybrid gel ink, which I'm not sure what that means exactly, but they did something special with it. It flows smoothly and evenly, and the black is incredibly dark. Great if you can control it, and definitely a must-have for cursive writers as well. Next, we have the Bic Gelosity, which I would describe as a very balanced pen. It's pretty good at everything overall and has good ink flow without being too smooth. My sister, who writes a lot in English, tried all these pens and said this was her favorite. Bic has always been a no-frills and reliable brand, so this was expected. The last gel pen today is also the most unique, the Zebra G301. This pen has the strongest ink flow, but yet it's capable of writing with sharp edges and tapered to thin points. It's also not very smooth and actually grips the paper. After using this pen for several days, I started to suspect that this was due to the ball at the tip being more recessed than the other pens, so when you write at a lower angle, the edge of the socket grazes the paper, causing friction and also making those sharp edges possible. This is actually great for writing characters, and if we evaluated them based only on how they write, this would probably be my favorite gel pen. But it does skip occasionally if your writing angle is too low. The build of this pen is also quite unique, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. Moving on to rollerball pens, our first entry is the Uniball Anx. This is the cheapest rollerball they make, and it certainly feels that way. It bleeds the least compared to the others, but it tends to spread unpredictably, often causing blotches or feathering in your writing. The Pilot V5 RT is the 0.5mm version of the V7 RT, and this is my favorite pen on this entire list. Unlike the last pen, the ink in this pen spreads slowly, evenly, and controllably, making it easy to write flourishes and unlikely to blotch. There's two reasons I switched to the 0.5mm version. The first is that the small tip scratches the paper more, so it isn't as slippery as the V7. The second is that the V5 can taper down to thinner points without needing to flick super fast. At the same time, it can still write thicker strokes if you go slowly. Not as thick as the V7, but pretty close. So I feel like the dynamic range of the V5 is wider than the V7. However, the V7's bolder writing still looks good and feels more like brush script, so I still pick it up from time to time. Next is another pen from Uniball, the Vision Elite, and this is their top-of-the-line rollerball pen. It's definitely a big improvement over their cheaper inks, but the ink still can't match the Pilot's ink in terms of consistency and control. I've also noticed that Uniball pens tend to be lighter in color. The last pen today is the Sharpie Roller, and this pen bleeds like crazy. Not only does it bleed a lot, but the ink spreads super fast, so if you linger just a tiny bit too long, you'll end up with a blotch. With practice, it definitely gets better, and you could use higher quality paper to remedy this problem, but I don't know why anyone would choose this pen when an amazing pen like the Pilot V series exists. When I decided to make this video, I originally wanted to rank these pens and give you guys a final recommendation at the end. But then I realized that all the gel pens are pretty good, and it was really hard to rank them. The rollerballs are a different story. The Pilot Precise V5 and V7 are by far the best, and I wouldn't even consider the others to be honest. So let's just take those away and compare the rest of these pens. Okay, so if you are not very artistic or have shaky hands, you'll want a stable pen that's not too slippery. For gel pens, I will recommend the Zebra G301, Uniball Signal 207, and if you can find the Pilot G2 pens that are made in Japan, then go for it. But as I said, I would avoid the current Amazon stock. Let me know in the comments if this changes. If you want to try rollerballs, go for the Pilot V5. It's definitely scratchier than the V7, so it's easier to control. The Pilot V series are also my top pick if you simply want the pens that write the best looking characters. Choose V5 if you want a more chiseled look, easier control, or if you're practicing complex traditional characters. Choose the V7 for a more fluid, brush-like experience. Let's talk ergonomics real quick. The most ergonomic pen, once again, is the Pilot V series. They really do have a super comfortable rubber grip that slightly tapers, and it's the perfect width for me. Another standout is the Bic Gelosity. The Bic is honestly more ergonomic than the Pilot, but the problem is you only get one comfortable position. So if you like holding your pen higher, and especially lower, it'll be quite uncomfortable, since this sharp lip will press into your fingers. All the other pens are okay, but the Zebra G301 is the worst. It's too thin to hold comfortably, and the hard plastic grip doesn't help either. But if we're talking build quality, then the Zebra takes the lead with a solid metal body and metal clip. Others like the Pilot V5 or Pentel Energel have plastic bodies, and their clips start to wobble a bit over time. The runner-up for best build would have to be the Bic Gelosity. The entire body just feels solid, and as a nice point of refinement, it's the only pen here that locks the clicker in place after you click it. Finally, if you were to ask which pen is the best value, I'd say they're about the same. They all cost pretty much between $1 and $2 per pen, except for the Zebra G301. Not only does this pen cost a bit over $2 each, they also have much smaller ink cartridges, so they don't last very long. And on top of that, the refills cost just as much as buying a new pen. So the cost of using this pen will certainly add up over time, making it a poor value. Okay, let me leave you with a final tip. All of these pens you see here, except for the Papermate, are refillable. And if you look at their ink cartridges, you might notice that they're oddly similar in size. So you might wonder if you can swap them. Yes you can. So this means instead of buying different pens to try, you could just buy the inks and swap them into your current pens. Anyways, hope you found this video helpful. Here are all the writing samples once again, so you can screenshot this video and examine them carefully if you wish, and maybe find the perfect pen for you. I'll see you in the next video. 我们下次再见了，拜拜。And of course, now it's time to announce the winners of the Super Chinese giveaway. Congratulations to FrozenBird, aka Friedrich Wohler, STR Facts, and Fell in Love. Thank you everyone for entering, and to our winners, go ahead and contact me through Instagram to redeem your prize. If you don't have an Instagram, no worries, just leave a comment on this video and I'll get in touch with you. See you guys next time. 下次再见了，拜拜。